Good morning and welcome to Ag Talk in the Raw, where I talk raw about agriculture and other things that are on my mind. So what's on my mind today? Grain prices, and why grain prices are where they're at, and why our government really doesn't give a shit about farmers. We did have a president that actually gave a damn about farmers, and I don't care what other people say. You can watch CNN, MSNBC. You can even watch some other farming channels, and they'll talk about, you know, the current situation. If you don't know, France and Germany, and now Ireland. I'm not sure whether it's Northern Ireland. I think it is just Ireland. Well, you have two parts of Ireland. Northern Ireland is the UK, and then you have Ireland, which is the lower half of that island. They're protesting. The French, according to what I've read, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe some French farmers or French viewers on here or people that are in the know can tell me about this, even if you're from Germany. Let me know if this actually happened. But I read that the French government caved to the French farmers. I know if you're in the United States, you probably don't know that much of this is going on, but they've been protesting pretty hard for well over a month, maybe 2 months now. What are they protesting? If you didn't know, they're protesting the government overreach that they have and that they are being subjected to government overreach in what they can actually produce. Now, I don't know if you watched Alex the Dutch Dairyman. He was from the Netherlands. I think Holland, Netherlands. I think it's the Netherlands. Pretty sure he was from the Netherlands. He actually sold his cows, sold his farm, and moved to Nova Scotia, Canada, which is a whole nother tyrannical government under Trudeau, from what I've seen and read and heard on here. But he moved to Nova Scotia, Canada, so that he could continue doing what he wanted to do, which was farm the way he wanted to farm, or in a more free way. Because in the Netherlands, they were, whether they still are or not, I'm not sure, but they were basically taking these farmers' grounds and blaming them for global warming, climate change, whatever you want to call it. We are being blamed for that as well. It is the farmers' faults that there's methane gas being released into the atmosphere, the CO2. We are CO2 generators. We do nothing to curb CO2 emissions. We just pump CO2 out from our exhaust pipes on our tractors. There's nothing that we do that takes CO2 out of the atmosphere. And all those farting cows that we produce to feed people, well, that's bad, because farting cows are, a major problem, and they're actually destroying our atmosphere. And we are going to all die because farmers are to blame. That is sarcasm if you haven't gotten it yet, but that's what it is. So, how many billion people are on this planet? 7? 7 billion people. How many million cows are on this planet? People fart, people shit, people eat, people burp, and what do? We generate methane gas from our ass. That's what we do. So they want to stop farmers from producing these products that, well, we're not even talking cows, chickens and hogs, ammonia and other things that they release into the atmosphere. But the one thing that our government and governments around the world haven't really figured out or realized, that CO2 is not our problem. CO2 makes up 0.04% of our atmosphere. At 0.02% of our atmosphere, that's when all life on the planet begins to die. Yes, begins to die. So we are at basically twice the amount of CO2 carbon in our atmosphere that is required to actually sustain life and grow things. We need CO2 carbon. Too much CO2 carbon, you know what that does? Do you know what it does? It actually makes the crops that we grow to sustain our lives grow better, right? So there was a period of time when our CO2 carbon in the atmosphere was 0.12%, not even a full percent, 0.12%. And I believe that was the Cretaceous period, like 4 billion years or 350 million years ago. 350 million years ago, the CO2 levels, and if you know anything about world history, that's when everything was big, like the giant redwoods in California. Those trees were actually small compared to trees that we know existed in that time period when the CO2 carbon was in our atmosphere was 0.12%. Okay, so our government is choking us with regulations. Now, why are they doing this? And this doesn't even have anything to do with grain prices yet. But they're choking us with regulations on our older tractors. They want us all to burn more fuel so that our EGRs, our exhaust gas recirculators, and the DPFs, diesel particulate filters. And, oh yeah, wait a minute, we need nitrogen, which takes energy to produce nitrogen, liquid nitrogen, or urea. Urea is produced, and that's what the diesel exhaust fluid is actually urea, which in turn causes the price of urea, nitrogen, or any other nitrogen source for that matter to climb, because now we've got all these diesel engines that are now requiring a source of nitrogen, liquefied nitrogen, not nitrogen gas, but nitrogen fertilizer or urea nitrogen to be pumped into the after treatment of the exhaust to basically bring that bind that carbon and bring it to the soil, which is not a bad thing. I mean, the nitrogen or the carbon being brought to the soil is not a bad thing. So, but farmers around the world are being blamed for all of these terrible things that the government tells us are terrible, when the reality of it is it's not terrible, it's necessary. Carbon dioxide that we emit from our carbon monoxide that we emit from our gasoline cars is not carbon dioxide, that's carbon monoxide, which is a carbon form of carbon. The monoxide part of it, I believe that is what you call NOx, or nitrous oxide. So the EGR valves in your tractors are supposed to recirculate that nitrous oxide gas back into the clean side of your engine to basically take up space and burn cleaner, which, okay, you want to burn cleaner. But the diesel particulate filters that then require a burn to actually burn more fuel to clean the filter, those I don't agree with. So carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, any of that carbon that is being expelled through your exhaust, in gasoline cars, they used to take care of it with catalytic converters, and they still do, obviously, but people steal those because they're worth like $150 a piece now. At the scrapyard, they're like $1,200 to replace. You can go to Stony Ridge Farmer. He had a catalytic converter stolen out from under his Ford Lightning truck that he had. Yeah, so, is this the right one? That is not the right one. Anyway, yeah, so now let's get to why our grain prices are climbing. These are just input costs and really annoying facts that our government is doing to the U.S. farmer and farmers around the world. These governments have decided to use us as their whipping boys, teaching the city folk that have no fucking clue as to the way the cycles of the earth work. And nobody at this point has even mentioned that great big ball of fire up in the sky. You know that big ball of fire that keeps us nice and warm in the summertime, when we go to the beach, that ball of fire that can actually burn your skin if you're white or just darken you if you're black or Asian. Black or Asian. Yeah, that thing, the sun, the thing that actually makes all life on Earth possible by its radiation. All life on Earth is here because of that ball of fire in the sky. So energy cannot be created or destroyed. It is all from the sun. As much as people would like to think that human beings can create energy. We cannot. It is from the sun. A little bit of research will tell you that. But, of course, all of the problems of this planet are now created by man. If you didn't know, we are in a huge solar activity era in this cycle. So in the 1980s, well, let's see, in the 1970s, we were supposed to be going through a cooling period, and I remember it because I was a kid in 1970s, the late 1970s. I was in school, like first grade, kindergarten, first grade, and then 1980. The 80s, early 80s, it was cold, it was snowy, it was blizzards in the wintertime. We had no major heat waves, but by the end of the 1980s, I can remember weather that was like this. It started into this cycle of warm air in the wintertime in this area. Now, I'm not saying out west, I don't know. But by the early mid-1990s, early to mid-1990s, blizzard in 94, 1993, I remember snow that fell in November that really didn't melt until March. So, and when Timothy was born in 1994, he was born in April of 1994, there were still piles of snow in the corners of the parking lot of the hospital where he was born. And that was in Hunterdon County, New Jersey. The snow was in the corners. He was born on the 19th of April in 1994. So there was still snow in the parking lots then. I was putting on nitrogen on barley at that. There's a picture of me as a young man with the wristbands from the hospital, and it was warm in April, and we were putting down fertilizer. I was in just basically a flannel shirt. So that'll tell you that the sun has a lot to do with these cycles. 1995 was worse. We get all through the 90s and into the early 2000s, and it snowed and it was cold, and the global warming thing kind of went away because we can't have global warming when the East Coast and the West Coast are experiencing, and the whole country for that matter, are experiencing these huge swings in cold, and then summertime it got hot, which was normal. Then they tried to tell us that the cold weather was part of global warming, and shut up, you don't know what you're talking about, because just because it's cold doesn't mean that the globe isn't warming up. So then we get into, right up until about 2019 was probably the last of the really kind of incredibly snowy winters, because since 2020, it's been warm here. Now, I don't understand it other than I know that the sun, the solar flares, and the solar voids on the sun, there was a huge void that opened up in the sun which emitted mega bands of radiation, and that is why we are seeing the northern lights, because that is that electromagnetism or the electro whatever of the earth, the magnetic field of the earth colliding with the radiation from the sun. That is why you're seeing these brilliant and magnificent northern lights displays. All right. These solar flares will start to wane and go, the other way as the sun calms down and it goes through its, a 7 year cycle? They go through cycles. So the sun goes through its cycle. Once it goes through its cycle, we're going to go back into freaking feet of snow instead of inches, or warm weather. We're going to have snow that starts in November and doesn't stop until the second week of March, and that's where that's going to be. So, with that being said, on global warming and farmers being blamed for all of this stuff, we're going to move on to why in the hell is the price of corn especially, wheat as well, down when Russia is still bombing the shit out of Ukraine. The Ukrainian farmers are still not growing wheat enough like they were, and the prices are dismal. Price of corn is dismal. What was it, $4.35 a bushel the other day? That wouldn't be terrible if our input cost, our diesel fuel, wasn't $4 a gallon, and our fertilizer wasn't creeping up into that $600 a ton, for potash and phosphates. Nitrogen is somewhere. Last I looked, it was not quite 400. It might be higher than that now because I've heard that it's coming back up. So when those fertilizer costs get to that point, you really, really, truly need to have no less than $5.25 a bushel for your corn. Anything below that, and you're losing money, especially if you're leveraged pretty good with your equipment. And not just the YouTube farmers, but farmers in general around the country have. I'm not saying all of you. Maybe that anybody that's farming under 500 acres is not looking at newer equipment. They can get by with a 4440 or a 4450 or whatever international. What are those 7120s and things like that? The boxcar Magnums and stuff, Massey Fergusons and Fords even still. TWs and 8000 series Ford tractors that were still very viable machines to run on small operations. But any of these larger operations, saying 1,500 to 5,000 acres of row crops, they're leveraged. I'm sorry, they're leveraged. And as those input costs go up, and the requirements for this equipment to be repaired by the dealerships from the manufacturers that own these things, literally own them, because if you can't fix your own equipment, if you don't have access to the computer programs to diagnose these tractors, or even the knowledge to allow the computer to open up into the technician side, which I do know that the way to do that, and I'm not sharing it online because if I do, it can be a problem for me. Like, I don't really want to get sued by John Deere or Case or any of the others, and I know how to get into those on both equipment manufacturers' equipment. But still, the inputs that go into just maintaining your equipment, if there's a hiccup in your computer or a sensor or a probe or mostly sensors, if they go bad, or if there's an actual problem with your tractor, you can't just say, oh, okay, I'm going to hook up my laptop here and I'm going to go find it. You used to be able to go to Ukraine and get a computer program from them, bootleg John Deere stuff that you could get in with, and Case and Agco stuff as well. But we're not able to get those anymore because, well, you may be able to get them, but it's not as easy as it used to be because of the war between Russia and Ukraine. So now we're going to talk about why the grain prices are so low. And this really pisses me off because we as farmers, anybody that is a farmer that's watching this, was enjoying some higher prices on your grain markets in the last 3 years, 3 to 4 years. Let's say 4 years. 2020 had pretty good pricing. We were about a buck over what it would have took me to $1 a bushel profit, as to what it took me to plant it and the equipment that I was running. As I bought more better equipment over the last 3 years, the profit margins have shrunk right down because the minute that the equipment manufacturers see that American farmers are making more money, or any farmer for that matter, the price of equipment and parts and everything else goes up. So that has what has spurred that 36% increase over the last 3 years in parts. 36% increase just in parts alone. This year, 2023, because we haven't gotten into anything 2024, but 2023 grain prices or farm income has dropped by 24%. So you take 24% and then a 33% increase on parts, not talking about equipment, that's up by 30% as well. So all of these things, when the farm income drops, oh, wait a minute, inflation. The true inflation numbers are off the charts. Your interest rates are no longer 2%, 1.8 to 2.2%. In the Trump years, yes, the Trump years, they are now at 8.4%. Thank you very much, Joe Biden. And that makes a huge difference because I do this, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there that do this, will borrow, 2% money is great. It's like, oh, I can borrow money at 2% and, I'm making XYZ money here. I can leave that money in there, and big deal is 2%. When I'm making, more money, I can just free up some cash that's coming in. My cash flow is good. I'm paying my bills, and everything is paid off at the end of the year. And by the time you're done, it's manageable. But at 8.4% interest, that's not manageable anymore. You can't do that. You'll go flat out broke. Now, there's some companies like FBN and John Deere that are using the mega money that they have been making through their businesses that are offering 0% interest, 0% financing for 12 months. But at the end of that 12 months, then you're hit with the 8.4%. And when they pull 24% of your farm income away from you, that is more than the profit margin that you were able to pencil in. Trust me, I know how it is. And it really, really irked me because I listened to many different projectionists of the grain prices for the end of 2023 into 2024. Don't contract. They were saying that as late as September and October. Don't contract. This is the lowest the corn price is going to be for the rest of this year and into the early part of 2024. I watched it on TV. I looked at it on the computer, and they were wrong. Well, why were they wrong? Might ask that question. I know I have. Why were they wrong? I'm going to tell you why they were wrong. Because Joe Biden, and I'm going to use his name, Joe Biden and the whole cabinet of morons that he has down there inhabiting the White House, including the cackling bitch Harris, they did not honor what Donald Trump had implemented for the farmers, okay? So if you like to eat, you might want to, and you're not a farmer and you like to eat, you may want to take a really good close look. You do know that Bill Gates is buying farmland like a wild man, and he's not buying that ground for fun. He's buying that because he is a money whore. He wants more. So, okay, so what was the deal between Joe Biden and China? Or let me back up. I'll have a Joe Biden moment. What was the deal between Donald Trump and China? China. Okay, so the deal with Donald Trump and China was, you want to sell us cheap crap like this? These little things? This is made in China. Says so right on it. Yep. Apple products. Let's see, can that focus on that? I don't know if it can or not. Will it? It's made in China. I think you can see it. I'm trying to get this thing so you can see it, but it is made in China. I know this Apple telephone is made in China. Everything that we buy, I know this is made in China. This is made in the Philippines, right? Yeehaw! Anyway, with that being said, and the things that are made in China, Vivitar, this little thing here, this is a little tripod I'm going to use for my camera, made in China. China. That's fine. If the United States people don't want to make this stuff here in the United States and they want to get it made cheaper in China, the Chinese need to buy grain, right? Buy grain. Just buy our grain. That's what Donald Trump had set up. Look, if you want to fill our country up with your landfill fodder, you have to buy our grain. Well, Joe Biden said, nah, you don't have to buy our grain. Why do you need to buy our grain? We'll just take the shit that you give us, and you don't have to pay tariffs. You don't have to buy our grain. You don't have to do any of that stuff. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why the price of corn is down. Price of soybeans still up. You know why? Because there's no other place to buy beans. We have more beans than anybody else. And that's why the price of beans was up. $13.59 I got for soybeans in November. November, $13.59. I had a great deal. I contracted them all for that. I made out like a bandit. Too bad I didn't have 1,000 acres of the damn things. But soybeans are down right now. Below, what are they, $11.80 now, I believe? So That's fine. Still, $11.80 a bushel's okay. It's all right. You're not going to go buy new land. They don't want farmers to buy land. They want people like Bill Gates to buy land, Elon Musk to buy land. We might as well use all sides of the spectrum there. They want people other than farmers and farming families to buy land. Because if farmers buy land, that's wealth. And then it becomes generational. My wife is home. Anyway, that is why. So, where's China buying its corn from? Anywhere than here. They don't buy anything from us right now. They haven't. I will. So that's why our prices are low. Because, and you know, hey, our president doesn't care. What does he care? He's doing what they wanted. He's doing what they wanted. That they paid his son Hunter to do. Right?
Left.
Left. Oh, look at this beautiful woman. Now, come on. Show your dress you went to church in.
I'm not showing
Come
my
on.
dress.
You went to church in it.
So,
Is it bad?
Yeah.
She's so pretty. Anyway, she's so pretty. I come on. My pretty girl. Anyway, with that being said, now you know why. The Panama Canal is almost shut down, so they're having to haul everything around the bottom of South America, you know, which takes more time, but it's almost the same price. It's just more treacherous to go that way. There's some other factors into why these prices are low. The middleman is making the money because when one country runs out of corn and China still wants to buy from them, they just call up and say, "Hey, United States, yeah, I know your prices are low, but we're kind of needing them." And then there's that deal that they make where they get their 10%, and they don't care if it's bankrupting U.S. farmers.
I want this red dress. You want me to show up this red dress?
My
Ooh,
sexy.
You can see my. Oh, fatso.
You're fat? What can you see? She's bad. Yeah, that dress is kind of tight. Anyway, yeah, now I can't remember what I was thinking. Anyways, enjoy the show, and keep your head up, because just keep your head up.